Imagine waking up one morning and the thing that used to drive you, the ambition, the desire, the forward motion that structured every day, is just gone. The alarm goes off and there's no pull toward anything. Not sadness, not anger, just an absence where the engine used to be. You go through the motions because the motions are familiar, but something inside knows the motions are empty now. The framework that made them meaningful has dissolved. And the terrifying part isn't the emptiness. It's that the emptiness feels more honest than the fullness ever did. As if the engine was running on a fuel that was never real. And now that it's burned off, you're left with a silence that nothing in your old life prepared you for. If that sounds familiar, you're not losing your mind. You're inside a process that has a name and a structure and an ending, even though, from the inside, it feels like none of those things exist. The desire not to exist that accompanies this phase isn't a wish for death. It's the old identity sensing its own dissolution and interpreting that dissolution as annihilation. The self you built, the one with the preferences, the goals, the story about who you are and what your life is for, is collapsing. And because it's the only reference point you've ever had, the collapse feels total. But you're not the thing that's ending. The construction is ending, and the construction was never the whole of you. There's a species of caterpillar that, inside the chrysalis, doesn't gradually transform. It dissolves, almost completely. Its body breaks down into a formless biological soup with only a few clusters of cells, called imaginal discs, that carry the blueprint of the butterfly. If you opened the chrysalis at this stage, you wouldn't find a transformation in progress. You'd find something that looks like nothing. That's the void, the space between what you were and what you're becoming, when neither identity exists and the only thing present is the raw material of change. The caterpillar doesn't survive. The butterfly doesn't remember being a caterpillar. And the terrifying implication is that the person on the other side of your void might not feel like you. They might not want the things you wanted or see the world the way you saw it. The old self is right to be afraid. It's not going to make it across. The void is survivable. There's evidence. In 1913, after breaking with Freud and losing most of his professional world, Jung felt this exact ground give way. He didn't resist it. He followed the dissolution inward, let himself hear voices, see visions, draw images from somewhere below conscious thought. He spent 4 years in that territory. What came out the other side? The shadow, the collective unconscious, individuation, was built in the void, not despite it. The void wasn't an obstacle to the work. The void was the material it was made from. But here's the part no one tells you when they cite that story as a success. The middle was unbearable. The middle is always unbearable, because in the middle, there's no evidence that anything is coming. The old framework has collapsed, and the new one hasn't sent a single signal. You're standing in an open field where a house used to be, and every instinct you have is screaming to rebuild. That instinct is the survival mechanism of a self that only knows how to exist inside structure. It can't tolerate formlessness, so it generates urgency. It frames the emptiness as an emergency. And if you listen, if you rebuild too quickly, if you grab the first framework that promises to make the emptiness stop, you'll construct a replica of the old house on the same foundation that already failed, and the whole thing will collapse again, harder. The desire not to exist is loudest right here, in the middle, when the old self is dissolved enough to know it's dying but intact enough to narrate the experience. That voice, the one that says, "I don't want to be here anymore," is the voice of a structure losing its grip on the identity it was built to protect. It's not your voice. It feels like your voice because it's the only one that's been speaking for as long as you can remember. But the thing that hears that voice, the awareness underneath, the part witnessing the dissolution instead of being the dissolution, that part is untouched. It was there before the framework was built. It will be there after the framework is gone. And the void is the first time it's had a clear line of sight to the surface, because all the noise that was covering it has finally gone quiet. This process has a name. Jung called it individuation, the movement toward becoming what you actually are once the constructions imposed by the external world are removed. He didn't frame it as pleasant. He framed it as necessary and brutal. The psyche dismantles the false self the way a surgeon removes a growth, not gently, not without cost. But the recovery has a direction, even when you can't feel the direction, even when the void feels static and permanent and indistinguishable from a dead end. The imaginal discs are doing their work beneath the surface. And the fact that you can't see the progress doesn't mean there is no progress. It means the progress isn't happening in the part of you that used to track progress. That part is gone. The tracking was part of the old framework. So what do you actually do inside the void? You stop trying to get out. The trying is the thing that extends the stay. Every attempt to fix the emptiness is the old identity trying to reassemble. And every reassembly attempt interrupts the process the void is trying to complete. The void isn't punishing you, it's clearing ground. And ground can't be cleared if someone keeps dragging furniture back into the room. So you sit. You let the days feel flat without interpreting the flatness as failure. You eat, you sleep, you walk. You stay in contact with the physical world, because the physical world is the only anchor that doesn't require a framework to be real. The chair is real without a narrative. The air is real without an identity. Your body is real without a self-concept to pilot it. The void has a bottom. It doesn't arrive as a breakthrough. It arrives as a quiet moment where the urgency to escape stops, where the emptiness is still there, but the panic about the emptiness has softened, where you notice, almost accidentally, that you're still here, that the thing you were afraid of losing wasn't lost. It was just buried under a structure that had to come down before you could reach it. Jung called this the self. Not the ego, not the identity, but the deeper center that exists before any construction is laid on top of it. It comes as a breath that goes all the way down for the first time in months. A morning where you notice the light on the wall and don't immediately interpret what it means. The caterpillar doesn't survive the chrysalis, but something does. And that something isn't less than what entered. It's what was always there, folded inside the structure, waiting for the structure to dissolve. The void isn't the end of you. It's the first time the real thing has had room to unfold. And unfolding requires exactly the conditions you're sitting in right now. Darkness, silence, the total absence of the framework that used to tell you who to be. You're not disappearing, you're arriving. It just doesn't feel like arrival yet, because you're still expecting it to look like the place you came from. It won't. It'll look like something you've never seen, and the only way to reach it is to stop reaching.